The air in Neo-Tokyo reeked of despair and decay, a putrid cocktail that clung to every surface like a second skin. Power, her neon pink hair a stark contrast to the grimy streets, felt the weight of her latest assignment settle in her gut like lead. The Blood Fiend's crimson eyes scanned the crumbling facade of Roswald Manor, a once grand estate now festering at the edges of the city's rot. Eliminate Rem, the order echoed in her mind, a mantra of death. A blue-haired maid, suspected Oni. Dangerous. Terminate with extreme prejudice. Power's lips curled into a sardonic smile, revealing razor-sharp teeth. How many times had she heard those words? How many lives had she snuffed out in the name of public safety? But this time felt different. There was an electricity in the air, a foreboding that made even her inhuman skin crawl. As she approached the manor's gates, Power's mind drifted to her own twisted past. Flashes of blood-soaked laboratories, screaming test subjects, and the sickening crunch of bones filled her thoughts. She had been born in violence, molded by it, turned into a weapon by those who saw demons as tools to be used and discarded. The gates creaked open, a mournful wail that seemed to warn of the horrors within. Power stepped onto the grounds, her senses immediately assaulted by the stench of rot and chemicals. The manicured lawns were a facade, hiding the decay that permeated every inch of this place. Inside the manor, Rem moved with practiced efficiency, her blue hair a blur as she dusted ornate furniture and polished silver. But beneath her placid exterior, a storm raged. Fractured memories clawed at the edges of her consciousness. Flashes of pain, screams, and a strength that felt both familiar and terrifying. As she worked, Rem's eyes darted to the shadows, always watching, always wary. She couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong here, that something was terribly wrong. But every time she tried to grasp at the truth, it slipped away like smoke, leaving only a gnawing emptiness. Power infiltrated the manor with ease, her blood manipulation abilities allowing her to slip past security undetected. She found herself in the servants' quarters, donning a maid's uniform that felt like a mockery of her true nature. As she buttoned the starched collar, Power caught her reflection in a tarnished mirror. For a moment, she saw not the hardened killer she had become, but the scared, broken girl she once was, strapped to a table as scientists tore her apart and put her back together. She shook off the memory, steeling herself for the task ahead. But as Power stepped into the manor's opulent halls, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into something far more sinister than a simple assassination. Rem felt the newcomer's presence before she saw her. Something in the air shifted, a predatory energy that made her skin prickle. When their eyes met across the grand foyer, time seemed to stand still. Power saw not just a target, but a reflection of herself, another pawn in a game beyond their understanding. For Rem, the sight of Power triggered a cascade of fragmented memories. Blood, pain, a strength that could shatter mountains. She gasped, stumbling backward, her head pounding as reality seemed to fracture around her. "Are you all right?" Power asked, her voice dripping with false concern. She approached Rem slowly, every muscle coiled and ready to strike. Rem steadied herself against a marble column, her eyes wild with confusion and fear. I'm fine," she managed, but the words felt hollow, as if spoken by someone else. As the days passed, Power found herself drawn deeper into the manor's twisted web. She watched Rem closely, looking for any sign of the Oni she was supposed to eliminate. But what she saw instead was a broken soul, trapped in a gilded cage. Late one night, as Power crept through the manor's shadowy corridors, she stumbled upon a hidden door. The stench of chemicals and decay hit her like a physical blow as she descended into the bowels of the estate. What she found there would haunt her for the rest of her days. The laboratory was a nightmare made real. Twisted amalgamations of human and demon flesh writhed in tanks of murky fluid. Operating tables stained with blood and worse stood in neat rows, their restraints well worn from countless struggles. And there, in the center of it all, stood the manor's owner, Lord Roswald, his hands deep in the chest cavity of what might have once been human. Power's stomach churned as she watched the nobleman work, his movements precise and practiced. This was no amateur dabbling in the dark arts. This was a man who had devoted his life to perverting the very fabric of existence. As she turned to flee, her foot caught on a loose tile. The sound echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Lord Roswald's head snapped up, his eyes meeting Power's with a mixture of surprise and sick delight. "Ah, our new maid," he purred, his voice oily and wrong. "Come to join the fun, have we?" Power's blood roared in her ears as she prepared to fight, but before she could move, a searing pain exploded in her skull. As consciousness slipped away, she caught a glimpse of blue hair and a face contorted with conflicted anguish. When Power awoke, she found herself strapped to one of the blood-stained tables, Lord Roswald looming over her with a scalpel in hand. Beside him stood Rem, her eyes vacant and unfocused. "You see, my dear," Roswald explained as he traced the blade along Power's skin, "Rem here is my greatest creation, an Oni of unparalleled strength, with none of the pesky free will that makes your kind so troublesome. And now, with your unique abilities, I'll be able to create something truly magnificent." As the scalpel bit into her flesh, Power's scream of agony mixed with Rem's whimper of distress. The sound seemed to trigger something in the blue-haired maid. Her eyes cleared, focusing on the scene before her with dawning horror. In that moment, the floodgates of Rem's suppressed memories burst open. She saw herself strapped to these very tables, felt the agony of countless experiments, remembered the strength that had been locked away. With a roar of fury and pain, Rem's true nature exploded to the surface. The laboratory erupted into chaos as Rem's awakened Oni strength shattered restraints and toppled equipment. Power, seizing the opportunity, used her blood manipulation to break free of her bonds. As alarms blared and containment units ruptured, spilling their grotesque contents into the fray, the two women found themselves face to face amidst the madness. "You!" Rem snarled, her voice distorted by rage and newfound power. "You're here to kill me." Power raised her hands, blood swirling around her like a crimson tornado. "I was," she admitted, "but I think we have bigger problems right now." As if to emphasize her point, a chimera, a horrific fusion of human, demon, and something unidentifiable, lunged at them from the shadows. Power's blood whips lashed out, slicing through misshapen flesh, while Rem's fist connected with bone-crushing force. Back to back, the hunter and her prey fought against the tide of abominations. Power's blood danced through the air, slicing and impaling with deadly precision. Rem's Oni strength sent creatures flying, their bodies shattering against walls and equipment. Through it all, Lord Roswald watched with maniacal glee, his life's work come to fruition in this orgy of violence and chaos. "Yes!" he cried, arms spread wide. "Fight! Kill! Show me the true potential of my creations." As the battle raged, Power found herself torn between her mission and the growing realization that killing Rem would only serve the twisted ambitions of men like Roswald. She saw in Rem a kindred spirit, another victim of humanity's insatiable desire to control and weaponize the supernatural. Rem, for her part, struggled against the tidal wave of memories and emotions threatening to drown her. Every punch thrown, every creature destroyed, felt like an act of vengeance against those who had stolen her life and identity. As the last of the chimeras fell, Power and Rem stood amidst the carnage, bloodied and panting. Their eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Together, they turned to face Lord Roswald, who now cowered behind an overturned table. "Wait," he pleaded, his earlier bravado evaporating in the face of their combined wrath. "You don't understand. Everything I've done, it's been for the greater good, for humanity's survival." Power's laugh was a harsh, bitter sound. Humanity's survival? Look around you. The only monster here is you. Rem stepped forward, her eyes burning with an inner fire. You took everything from me, she growled. My memories, my identity, my very soul. And for what? To create your perfect weapon? As Rem advanced, Power felt a moment of hesitation. Her orders had been clear: eliminate the Oni. But as she watched Rem close in on the sniveling nobleman, she realized that sometimes justice demanded a different kind of sacrifice. In the end, it was Rem who dealt the final blow. With a roar of primal fury, she brought her fist down on Lord Roswald's skull, ending his reign of terror in a spray of blood and bone. As the adrenaline of battle faded, the full weight of what had transpired settled over them. The manor burned around them, years of twisted experiments and tormented souls finding release in the purifying flames. Power and Rem stood at the edge of the estate, watching as their shared nightmare crumbled to ash. The silence between them was heavy with unspoken words, and the knowledge that their paths had been forever altered. What now? Rem asked, her voice barely audible above the roar of the inferno. Power turned to her, seeing not a target or a monster, but a reflection of her own pain and struggle. Now, she said, we choose our own path. As dawn broke over Neo-Tokyo, casting its pale light on the smoldering ruins of Roswald Manor, two figures walked side by side into an uncertain future. The Blood Fiend and the Oni, hunter and prey, turned reluctant allies, each carrying the weight of their past and the hope for a different kind of tomorrow. But as they disappeared into the city's shadowy streets, a new hunger gnawed at Power's insides. The thrill of the hunt, the intoxicating rush of battle, it called to her, a siren song of violence and power. And as she glanced at Rem, she wondered how long this fragile alliance could last before the monster within demanded its due. For in the end, some nightmares never truly end. They simply evolve, taking on new forms, waiting for the moment to plunge the world back into darkness.